That would have been funny. And we're live, I think. Who knows? Looks like I'll be streaming into the void to start off with. So if you join in, please let me know. It's going to be pretty much a shit show. Internet's been down for hours here and just recently got it back up and just trying to scramble to get this whole thing put together. So I didn't really get a chance. Well, I did get a chance to prepare, but not as much as I would have liked to. Anyway, welcome to episode 2 of the weekly news roundup here on the Shallow Depth of Feels live stream. I forgot what my thing is supposed to be called. And I don't know. So if you missed the first episode, which I'm sure you did, this is going to be a weekly news show, weekly news roundup. And we're going to talk about what's new in the world of cameras and audio and content creation kind of things. Could be gear, could be software related, video editing software, things like that. And also give you some recommendations for things to watch, some things that I've been watching on YouTube that I found to be helpful and interesting, and maybe do some channel updates. So that's kind of what the format of this show is like, so far anyway. So that's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot of new and interesting stuff to talk about this week. There's a couple new things from Sony, some new microphones, and a new lens announced from Sigma. So that's pretty much the new gear we'll be talking about. And Justin Artis, hey Philip, hey Justin, thanks for being in the stream, and thanks for chatting me up. Okay, so I think that's enough of the, I don't know, the prelude. I guess I can talk a little bit about the stream. I'm using the FX30 to stream, and it's going into OBS via my A10 Mini Pro, and I'm using the Shure SM7B, not the SM7DB, and that's going into my Audient Evo 4 for the audio. And I'm not using OBS to stream. I've had so many issues with OBS, and I tried to use it again in preparation for this stream, but I keep getting this disconnect, reconnect issue going on, and I have no idea what the cause of that is. My wife said maybe it's your Wi-Fi card in your computer because it doesn't happen on my Mac. So anyway, that's OBS. Never had really good luck with it, but the streams look really great if they do run. So anyway, I'm streaming through Riverside FM, and it's a web-based application that's used for podcasting, remote hosting, that kind of stuff, but they do have a live stream feature, and it only streams in 720p, unfortunately. So one of these days, I would like to get a 1440 or maybe even a 4K stream, but as it stands, we're using Riverside because it works. Anyway, so that is all of the prelude, and let's go ahead and start. Oh, I've got gas. All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is this new lens from Sigma. So Sigma is finally going to be releasing a 70 to 200 f2.8 DGDN OS for optical stabilization. And this is a sports designated lens, not an art designated lens. Kind of interesting. And DGDN is their designation for mirrorless mount. So this is for the Sony E mount, and it's going to be for the L mount. And so it's been a while. Obviously, Sigma's been putting out DGDN lenses for some years now, and this is going to be their first 70 to 200 natively for that system, for the mirrorless system. And Sigma has like, they might have a 70 to 200 technically for mirrorless, but those are just adapted versions of their older DSLR lenses. And they've, that's what they started out with when they kind of switched over to mirrorless, or they started making mirrorless lenses. They were just adapted versions of their DSLR lenses. So all of their truly mirrorless lenses have that DGDN designation, at least the full frame. I don't know if there's a different designation for their APS-C lenses. So anyway, all that. This is obviously a 70 to 200 f2.8. And there's not a whole lot of information about this. Sigma has just this kind of landing page here. And I guess this was from about October 5th. And there is a tentative launch date of December of 2023. So this should be coming out in the next 2 months, thereabouts, for both L mount and E mounts. So all we really have to go on is just this paragraph here and what we can see in this picture. And there has been some other images online taken of some mock-ups or some prototype versions of this lens, but we'll just kind of be looking at this here. I'm not really sure. So like I said, this is a sports lens and not an art lens. And as far as I know, the sports lens lineup has mostly been like super zoom type lenses. I know there's 60 to 600 that's pretty new. That's a sports lens. And so you can think of like those super long telephoto zoom lenses as typically being in their sports lineup. And the art lineup has typically been a more standard focal range, whether that's a zoom lens or a prime lens. So it's interesting to see that this one is going to be a sports lens. But other than just the designation, they're both like kind of their premium level lenses, sports being sort of like meant to be, I guess, more weather sealed and maybe a little bit more rugged, but it has like all the same features that you would typically see on an art lens. So whatever, the naming is just whatever. It is what it is. Some of the details they mention: optical image stabilization is OS2. I guess that's their latest algorithm, is what they say here. And it looks like they might have several different levels of stabilization on this lens. It's hard to see, but it looks like if you look at the bottom of this image, that there might be a couple of different switches for the optical image stabilization. I recently just got the 70 to 200 f4 for Sony, and it has OSS, and it has 3 different modes. And I haven't really tested the different modes. I know that like one of them is meant to like help pan stably, and maybe one is maybe more just sort of overall stable, but I'm not exactly sure. So I think it looks like that this has a similar kind of functionality. This is getting their new HLA motor. So all these lenses from Sony, from Tamron, and now from Sigma have this linear, like kind of like pulsing almost focus motor system, as opposed to the older, I can't even remember what it's called, but the linear motors, the linear focusing is much faster and quieter than the older system. So this should be pretty comparable to stuff from Sony and Tamron. It has, you can see that it has a programmable function button right there where the 70 millimeter is. And I think I've seen some other pictures that it looks like at least it has at least two of the programmable function buttons on it. The 70 to 200 from Sony has three. So it kind of just helps you depending on if you're shooting in vertical or portrait, landscape or portrait orientation. It gives you a place to easily access that function button. And what else? Oh, another nice thing that Sigma does. So this tripod foot here, of course, it's detachable and rotatable, but they build in a little Arca Swiss mount. So you can just mount this right onto an Arca Swiss tripod, whereas the Sony doesn't have that functionality. They just have quarter 20s on the bottom of them, so you'd have to screw it into whatever tripod mount that you want to use. I don't know why Sony does that, but Sigma, they build in the Arca Swiss mount right onto the foot there. Um, So it's interesting, like with all of the updated Sony lenses, whether that's G lenses like this f4 or the GM. So they've done a lot of Mark II versions that they've of all the lenses recently. And aside from improved optics, one of the things that Sony is really prioritizing with its lenses is sort of lightness and compactness. So if you compare the version 2s of all their lenses against the version 1s, they tend to be much lighter and smaller overall, in addition to improved optics. And hold on one second. That's something that Sigma hasn't quite done to the same extent. This is the 24 to 70 f2.8 DGDN. So this is the native mirrorless 24 to 70 that Sigma's had for a couple years now. And it's a pretty beastly lens. It's pretty heavy. It's big, and it's a standard, 24 to 70. And it doesn't really have, in terms of size and weight, compactness, it doesn't really have a lot of advantage over DSLR versions of this kind of lens. And that's something that Sony obviously did with its 24 to 70 f2.8 version 2, was make it a little bit smaller and lighter. However, this is also more than $1,000 cheaper than the Sony GM version 2. So I would gladly trade off some extra weight, some extra heft to save $1,100, $1,200 on the same focal length. So I'm anticipating that this lens is going to be at least $1,000 less than the GM version 2, which costs, I believe, $2,800. Yeah, $2,799.99 for the GM Mark II. And this guy right here, the 24 to 70 f4 Mark II G lens, costs $1,699.99. So $1,700 for this one. So I would imagine that the Sigma is going to come in probably a little bit more than the f4 version, but I would imagine it's going to be $2,000 or maybe a little less. So that'll put it quite a bit cheaper than the Sony. And I think as a trade-off, I would imagine it's going to be bigger and heavier than the Sony version. This lens has been out for a while, and it's been out much longer than the new Sony version 2. But Josh Satin did a comparison just recently on his channel of this lens versus the 24 to 70 G Master version 2. And in terms of optics, at least the examples that he showed and all the testing that he did, this stacks up pretty favorably against the G Master Mark II. So in my opinion, with Sigma, you're getting a lot of the same you're getting a lot of the optical quality of the Sony lenses, but what you're probably not getting is just the size, the weight, and maybe the cachet of obviously having the Sony lens. Another cool thing with this one is they added the aperture ring, which I kind of miss on the 24 to 70. This doesn't have an aperture ring. The G Master does. And so it's nice to see that here on the Sigma. I got a chance to, well, I didn't get a chance to. I took the opportunity to rent the Sony 70 to 200 G Master version 2 a couple months ago, and man, it was a really fantastic lens. I loved it. Uh, I thought it was amazing, and it didn't feel very bulky. It didn't feel very heavy, and I really wanted to buy that lens, but I couldn't exactly justify spending that much money on a 70 to 200. So I did end up going with the f4 version, which is also very light and compact, although it does unfortunately telescope when you zoom it out. I don't anticipate the Sigma being a telescoping lens. It's already looking pretty big, so I'd imagine it's going to be an internally zooming lens, but I can't say for sure. But anyway, I went to the camera store just to kind of test out a few lenses or see if they have them that I could actually hold and try out in the store. And they didn't have this one at the time, but they did have the G Master. And hold on one second. I think I might have a package and I don't want to miss it for a second day. So sorry about this. Hold on one second. And I'm back. False alarm. Sorry about that. I don't think anybody's watching anyway. Oh, wait, there is somebody here. Rambler, what's up? Rambler asks, are V60 SD cards good enough for Sony A7 IV? Mostly, yes. You can do pretty much everything that you need to do with a V60 card, except, I'm trying to remember, I don't have the A7 IV anymore. Um, it does have S and Q in really high quality. So I believe so you can do obviously you can do the all eye recording at 24 and 30 frames per second with a V60 card. I think that might be your limitation. But you can obviously do XAVC S and XAVC HS in pretty much in everything internally, all resolutions and all frame rates. I'm pretty sure you can do XAVC S and XAVC HS. So those are going to be the more compressed codecs, whether that's H.264, which is XAVC S, or H.265 or HEVC, which is the XAVC HS. I think you can do everything with the V60 cards. If you move up to the all-eye compression, which is the XAVC SI, then that's where you are going to probably find some limitations with the V60. I'm not exactly sure where you'll find those limitations. I think you can do 24 and 30, but I'm not 100% positive. And it's probably going to be 4K 60 that you can't do. And so all that to say, you can do a lot of stuff with just a V60 card if you're using the more compressed codecs. And have you ever got burnt using the slower cards? Now, see, the V30s are going to be more than enough for photos. I don't think you'll really run into any issues taking photos. I think the camera itself probably will buffer out or have like a burst limitation before the SD card becomes a limitation. Because it's not like exactly like a super blazing fast camera for photography. But you shouldn't be limited in photography with a V30 card. And like I said, even V30s will probably get you pretty far in 4K with that camera, as long as you're not using XAVC SI. So just try it out, just see what you can and can't do, but you'll be able to do a lot. And even if it means like bumping down from 422 10-bit to maybe 420 10-bit, and then you could do 8-bit everything in the camera with a V30 card, no problem, because that's what the older cameras were limited to that, and you didn't need any fancy card to get every recording option in the older cameras because they were all 420 8-bit anyway. Um, and then H.265 seems like the compression YouTube uses. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. H.265 is the much newer compression algorithm, and it's a much more efficient compression. So it has essentially the same size. You'll get the same size file whether you use XAVC S or XAVC HS, but you should get a higher quality result with HS. It's not, it's really hard to spot the difference, but that is technically true. So, um, yeah, no problem. It also will depend if I use HS because I've got newer computers that they can actually encode and decode that file, that format. But if you have an older computer that maybe say 2 or 3 years older or old at this point, or maybe 3 or 4, then you might have trouble editing those files and you might need to stick with XAVC-S, that older H.264 compression. So just try it out. Maybe just make a couple test recordings. It doesn't have to be of anything. Like you can just have the camera on, pointed at whatever, record for a minute or two in the different compressions and try some different resolutions and see what you can do. What graphics card? I have an RTX 4080. So if you've got something from the 30 series from NVIDIA, so that'd be the 3000 or like a 3060, 3070, 3080, and newer, you should be good. Those should all have H.265 encoders and decoders in there. And then if you've got a Mac, anything that's like an M1 or newer, those also should have no problem with H.265. If you use Radeon, AMD, then I think obviously their newest generation is good, and probably the 6000 series is probably good too. Sweet. Need some LaCroix. So anyway, I'm pretty excited. I like Sigma. I've got a mixture of Sigma and Sony lenses myself, and I don't currently have any G Masters. I used to have the 35 millimeter f1.4, but I sold that because I already had the 35 millimeter f1.8. And even though the image quality on the G Master was amazing, it had really bad focus breathing. And at the time, I didn't have a camera with focus breathing compensation. And that also has a pretty big crop. So I don't think it's um, just a sort of like an easy choice to use that focus breathing compensation all the time. But anyway, the G Master lenses are cool. They look amazing, but they're super expensive. But the Sigma lenses I find to be a pretty good compromise. So in addition to this one, the 24-70, I've also got the 50 millimeter f1.4, which I really like. And I've got the 105 millimeter macro, which is also a really cool lens. So I think Sigma offers a lot of good value. There's a couple of downsides to using Sigma. For video usage, you're not going to get that focus breathing compensation. That's limited to Sony lenses only. And they tend to have acceleration-based manual focusing, which I hate. And I've talked about that on my channel a number of times. So if you don't know what that means, I don't want to get into it in this live stream, but the Sony lenses have all moved to a linear focusing for manual focus. But it doesn't bother me so much because I tend to use autofocus as much as possible because autofocus has gotten so good. It usually does a better job than I can do myself. And if you are doing photography, their lenses, the Tamron and Sigma lenses also are limited to 15 frames per second, whereas the Sony lenses can go up to 30. But that's really only limitation if you're using like an Alpha 1 or an A9, because those are the only cameras that have like super, super fast burst rates that can really keep up with 30 frames per second. So you got the 3070, you're good to go, man. And so what's the best Sigma lens to make A6000 feel like a new camera for photos? I don't know. I mean, do you want a zoom lens or do you want a prime lens? Because and I don't have a lot of experience with the Sigma APS-C lineup. I know a lot of people love the 16 millimeter f1.4. That's a great lens. It's going to be roughly comparable to a 24 millimeter focal length on full frame. So people love that one. Um, I don't know. Just give me some more feedback on like kind of what you want to zoom or do you want to prime? Do you like wide angle, standard, long? I don't know. Captive is asking, I'm thinking about picking up a 1/8 mist filter to soften video and for slight halation. Am I better off fiddling with the image in post? Any filter suggestions? Um, you know, I don't know that there's really an easy way to get something that's just like that 1/8 mist filter in post. I know a lot of people, if you're using DaVinci Resolve, will use the bloom effect. But I don't know, I don't know that that does the same thing. So if you really like that, um, then maybe just get the filter because 1/8 is a that's pretty mild. It's not going to be, I think that the mist filter, in my opinion, has gotten a little bit played out. Um, so I think a 1/8 is probably the most that I would go for because I think it's a little bit too ubiquitous now. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's been doing it for a few years. I use the Dehancer film emulation plugin, and they have a bloom effect in there, which is what I use to give me something similar to that. But that plugin is about 450 bucks, I think. They do sell the bloom effect by itself. I think it's bloom and halation, and I think you can get that for 100 bucks. So if you're going to spend 70 to $80 probably on a mist filter, maybe 100 depending on the size of it, then maybe just go ahead and get the halation and bloom plugin because that way like you can always if you don't like it, then it's kind of like, if you have it on if you have it on the lens, then you're stuck with it. Versus if you do it in post production, you can either take it or leave it. So that's always been kind of my philosophy, that you can do it in post, and that way, if it doesn't suit this shot or if it doesn't suit what you like, then you don't have to have it. Rambler is saying all prime lenses for the A6000, maybe look into the 16 1.4 for landscape and street pics. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have a ton of APS-C lenses. Most of mine are full frame. Oh shit! The only APS-C lens that I've bought is this 10 to 20 millimeter f4. So this is going to be a 15 to 35 millimeter equivalent. This is a really cool lens. The reason I don't like APS-C, everybody's like, oh, APS-C lenses are cheaper and they're lighter, which is true. But in my opinion, they can be a little bit too small. I find them hard to use. Like you've got a focus ring here, or I don't know, is this the zoom ring or the focus ring? And they're just so close together. I find that they're just harder to use. I like the size. I prefer the size of a full frame lens. Maybe not this big, but full frame lenses don't have to be huge depending on the aperture. So I don't have long story short, I don't have a ton of experience or a ton of knowledge about APS-C lenses. So I know that the 16 1.4 is a real popular one, and Sony obviously has its own options. I know they've got a 15 millimeter. I think it's a 1.8. That's really great, but it's obviously going to be more expensive than the Sigma. And I guess I could just Google. We can just see what we have here. Let's see. Sigma APS-C. Let's go mirrorless. They've got the 30 millimeter f1.4. That one's only $289 right now. That's going to be like a 45 millimeter ish. So close to a 50, 1.4. That'd be a cool lens. It's almost like a nifty 50, but brighter. There's the 16 1.4. They just came out with this one, the 10 to 18. That's very similar to this one that I showed you, the 10 to 20. So this one is basically like their version of their 16 to 28 for full frame. Ooh, this one's hell expensive, 15.99. You probably want to avoid that one. And some of these are full frame. I think that's full frame. 17 f4. Here's a 23 millimeter. So this will be like a 35. 35 has always been kind of my favorite prime lens focal length. So if it were me, I kind of like wide stuff, wide to standard. I would probably go for the 23 or the 16 millimeter if I just was going to get one. Yeah, and you said landscape and street pics. I think either one of those would be good for both of those use cases. Keep asking the questions. I'm going to move on to the other little bit of new releases. Sony released a couple of new wireless microphone systems. This one is the ECM W3, and I think they've got one that's called, I think, the W1. So this W3 is a two transmitter, one receiver system, and then they've got one that is just a one transmitter, one receiver system. Both of them come with this charging case. So these are, super similar or exactly similar to the Rode Wireless Go 2. There's like 1,000 of these systems, 2.4 gigahertz wireless camera lav kits that have come out in the last couple years. So now Sony has thrown their hat into the ring. And what makes this one unique or different or maybe appealing is that it works wirelessly or cablelessly with Sony cameras. So this will slot into the hot shoe, the accessory shoe of a Sony camera, so you don't need a cable running into the 3.5 millimeter jack on the camera. And then it also will just kind of do the auto leveling for you. So just like any of their microphones that will plug into that accessory shoe, it's pretty much plug and play. You don't have to worry about it. So it makes it super simple. And these obviously, the transmitters will have microphones built in, so these don't come with lav mics, and they come with little furries. So yeah, it's just meant to be very simple. But I was watching some videos, and it's it's in my opinion way overpriced for 470 bucks because these don't have any internal recording. So a lot of the newer generation of these types of devices, like from Rode and DJI, Godox, pretty much everything that's come out in the last year has some internal recording option. So at 2.4 gigahertz, it's really easy to have these signal drop out, and to negate that, having it be able to record internally as a backup is pretty crucial or pretty critical, especially if you're doing any kind of like client work. If you're like a wedding videographer or any sort of like client, like live event videographer, I think these Sony ones are just like a non-starter because you don't have any kind of backup. And they seem kind of overpriced. So they're missing a lot of like the features that have come out, like with the Rode Wireless Pro and the DJI system. And really the only benefit of them is they just work seamlessly with Sony cameras. So I don't know. I don't know that it's really that great a deal. But if you are just if you're a content creator just doing your own stuff and you don't have clients to worry about, then this could be, the simplest and easiest one to go with if that is your priority. Yeah, Rambler, the 70 to 200 f4 macro. Yes, I do. I just got that a couple of weeks ago. My nothing. YouTube. I'm not doing much, if any, client work currently. So I'm really trying to just prioritize doing YouTube right now. And this one, I've been going out and to the parks and trying to get some like bird and wildlife shots with this. And I also like these kind of as a street videography. If you're familiar with Philip Bloom, he does a lot of like slow-mo, street urban kind of videography with telephoto lenses, and they're super amazing. So I've always wanted to try that out for myself. I just haven't gotten around to it. So that's my use case. And just running around the backyard and taking photos and videos of my dogs and cats. But yeah, this is an awesome lens. And it really hurt to not get the G Master version 2 because I love that lens. I think it's beautiful. This lens is also pretty beautiful, but that macro functionality is actually pretty cool Um, I think it makes up for the not G Master F28. No, I'm not going to black it out. I have seen Josh Satin has a blacked out version of one of these telephoto lenses, and I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool, but I'm not going to spend the extra money to black it out. I kind of like the two tone. You know, they didn't go full white or full off white with the zoom ring and the focus ring. So I don't know. And the next thing that I just saw today is this guy, Sony streaming microphone ECM S1. So this is like a podcasting live streaming microphone that's completely wireless, and it uses basically the same receiver as is in this thing here. And I don't know if they're like cross compatible, if you could buy this kit and then buy this thing, but I'm sure this probably comes with it. I don't know, but this is actually pretty cool because it's like having this microphone here, but completely wireless. So the receiver here obviously will go into your camera, and then you could do a podcast live stream using this microphone, and it'll go directly into your camera wirelessly. And it does, you can connect this via USB, so it'll work just like any other USB microphone. You can plug it into a computer or some sort of tablet or phone, you know, like any other kind of USB microphone. So this is actually kind of cool. It has a gain knob. It's got headphones. It also has multiple pickup patterns. It's got cardioid, and it looks like, is this omnidirectional and then a bidirectional mode. So this actually has three capsules in there. And you can see the USB connector here, and it's got headphones. The only way you can monitor the output of this microphone is when you are using the USB connection. You can't monitor it when it's wireless. But all in all, I don't know. I've only seen one video, and he recorded the whole video using this microphone, but he had it on the little stand that it comes with, and it was sitting on his desk, and it's a little bit far away. I would imagine it would sound better if it was a little bit closer, maybe not this close, but closer than he had it. But it sounded fine. Again, it seems a little pricey. You're paying like it's like Sony's like going full Apple and just kind of doing like I don't know, their stuff, their accessories, their microphones all seem a little bit overpriced in my opinion, but it's kind of neat some of the functionality that they are coming out with and making it sort of like this whole ecosystem like Apple is doing. So you either like that because you know you're going to be sticking with Sony forever, but it also can be a little bit less appealing if you like to switch cameras or you anticipate maybe switching cameras in the future. But at least you can use this over USB. I think that's everything for the new stuff coming out this week. I also wanted to mention real quick on my stream last week, I talked about the 18.6 update to Resolve being a little bit janky. I actually had to roll back to 18.5.1 because I was trying to edit a project in 18.6 and it was having all sorts of issues. But a couple of days ago, they released 18.6.1, and I've been editing a video, and so far it's working fine. Oh, check it out. 18.6.2 is now available. You're seeing that live. Um, so they're pushing out these updates pretty quick. That's two updates in like 2 or 3 days. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Hold on one second. I think I might have my package. Sorry. It's false alarm number two. This package is supposed to be here within the next 6 minutes. So sorry for all the false alarms. Anyway, we'll skip this download for now. And um, what's cool, and I wanted to show this last week, is one of the new features. Wow, I'm kind of making a goofy face here. Is if you go to so I'm in the Deliver tab. If you go to Audio and Audio Normalization, why is there no? Oh, here we go. You've got this normalized audio checkbox, and then if you go to mode, you've got all these presets. So you can do a YouTube preset, and then it's going to set a target level and a target loudness for the YouTube standard for audio. So that's pretty cool because, as I was saying last week, that's something that I know I've struggled with, is just having a consistent level of output for your videos. And especially a lot of new people who are making content, they might be too loud or they might be too quiet, or they just have like inconsistent levels from video to video. So this is a pretty cool thing. I'm not sure how well it's going to work, but it seems like a kind of a no-brainer if you just go ahead and check that and then set this to YouTube for all your uploads. Hopefully that'll help people get much more consistent audio from their videos. So anyway, they're definitely pushing out the updates. Like I said, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, if that means they're doing too much too quickly, but at least they are trying to fix things rapidly. All right, so let's see. Also take pics of spiders and insects. Yeah, I love doing that. And that's another benefit of this, not quite macro lens, but if you do get the teleconverters, you can make this a full macro, but you can still get close enough. I don't want to get like right on top of a massive spider with this lens. Yeah. And that's what I did. Like the first day I got it, or like the first, couple days, I went out to the park early in the morning and tried to get some cool macro stuff of some insects. But it's getting to that point of the year where that's going to be less and less of a thing, unfortunately. Ramblers asking, someone told me bad audio is not tolerable to viewers, but bad video can be tolerated. Do you agree? My friend gave me secondhand Rode mic with 3.5 millimeter jack. Are they finicky? Yeah, I mean, I think obviously you don't want to have bad video, but it is much more, I mean, because there's a lot of people who will just upload video shot on their phones. And as long as the content is compelling and people are enjoying it, it doesn't matter really how good it looks. I mean, you can watch a lot of like, I don't know, reality TV shows. Maybe the video quality is not super important. And then even if you go back, generations ago, before we even had HD television, the video quality was pretty bad, I mean, it was 480 and worse. And people were watching that stuff for generations, for a lifetime, essentially. Before we got to where we are now with like 1080 and 4K and beyond. So I think that's absolutely true. It's just definitely much more difficult for people to stick with it if the audio is like, if it's just painful to listen to, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I had the Rode VideoMic Pro for a while and I just misplaced it somehow. And I did have mine. This is the older VideoMic Pro, not the one with the detachable cable. Mine had the kind of built-in 3.5 millimeter cable, and it did fail on me. But Rode does have good warranties, but you said you got your secondhand, so I don't know about the warranty status of your mic. But I did get it repaired free of charge. But those do tend, or they have a possibility of failing if you've got the video mic that has the internal cable. They can be fixed, but just something to keep in mind or keep an eye out for. And then lastly, well, for now anyway, hopefully, do you have the free DaVinci or the paid one? Someone told me the free version is all you really need. Yeah, I do have the Studio. I've had Studio for a long time. I got it with my Ursa Mini Pro that I bought many years ago, and I've just had that same key for about 6 years, maybe 4 or 5 years. I don't know. So yeah, I do have Studio, but absolutely the free version is um, you can do everything that you need to do with the free version. Uh, However, you did mention your GPU. A lot of the GPU accelerated effects and sort of optimizations aren't as enabled in the free version. It used to be that there were no GPU optimizations in the free version. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there are some GPU optimizations with the free version, but I don't know exactly what. It used to be limited in terms of resolution. I think it was capped at 4K, but it seems like they kind of have relaxed um, some of those limitations that they used to have. But there are absolutely a bunch of effects that are not available in the free version, like here in the color page, and like I don't think they've got like this halation effect. I don't think that's in the free version. So if you put this on, this is going to give you halation, and then the secondary glow is pretty much a bloom effect, and then this has a grain effect in it. So this is all in this one little halation thing. And I don't think there's the film grain in the free version. So those are just two examples of things that aren't there. But in terms of just like editing video, audio, doing text and graphics, all that stuff you can absolutely do in the free version. And they said get the free software with purchase of camera, but I didn't see that promo. You pretty much almost everything well, not everything. A lot of the stuff that they sell that's Blackmagic design comes with the Studio license. The cameras come with it. So if you got a pocket camera, you should get the Studio license. Their editing keyboards, like their speed editor and their full-size editing keyboard come with it as well. So those are two things I know that should come with the paid, which should come with the Studio version of DaVinci Resolve. Cool beans. I think we're all caught up on the chat. And what do we have next? I'm going to go to the What to Watch segment. You ready for this? Okay. Boom. Coming back to my man Blaine Westrop, who I mentioned last week. This guy is putting out really, really good content for creators. And he did this one, Edit Fast with Transcriptions in Premiere Pro. And he goes through this whole workflow that he sort of learned about and sort of optimized for himself, how to use the AI-generated transcriptions in Premiere Pro to sort of live edit his videos. And this feature's been out in Premiere and in Resolve for a few months now, and it never really sort of caught my attention in terms of a way to edit videos until after I recorded my live stream last week. I was thinking about just going ahead and putting it on to Spotify as a podcast. And since I'm using Riverside FM to do the live stream, they also have AI generated transcriptions and an edit function right in there on their web page. So I did that. I used the AI generated transcriptions, and then I edited it using that transcription. I edited down the live stream to a more sort of like, I don't know, streamlined, took out all the dead space and all the ums and ahs as much as possible, and used that. So I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. I actually like doing this. So it got me thinking, well, let me try it in Resolve, because it's something that I hadn't done to edit a video. So I'm working on this video currently, and Resolve is freaking out. And I've been editing this whole timeline here, which up to this point is 11 minutes long. And you can see I've already edited quite a bit. And I've done all of that editing using the transcription feature. Let's see if I can figure out where I am. I think it's this one. And I'll go audio transcription, transcribe. So it's already been transcribed. So it takes depending on how long the clip is, it could take a minute, a couple minutes to transcribe this whole, 20-minute long clip or 30-minute long clip. And it does a really accurate job. I have been using the transcribe function to do captions in my videos, and it works amazing. So you can see like here, things like S-cinetone, it picks that up. It knows what it is for the most part. It knows like FX30, A6700. You can see that it even like does the lowercase a, just like it is standard in Sony's sort of corporate branding or whatever. So it recognizes a lot of terminology, which is pretty cool. So you can highlight bits of text and then you can hit insert or you can hit append and then it will just add that as a clip onto your timeline. You can also make sub clips. So if you wanted to use this as a way to organize your edit before you actually start editing, it's actually pretty cool functionality. The one problem that I've been running into just using it to edit, like I'll highlight some text and then I'll add it to the timeline. The cut points tend to be a little bit rough. So I'll have to go back in and finesse the cut points. It'll like kind of abruptly cut off the ends of words and then it'll kind of start in cutting off the beginning of a word at a cut point. So it does take a little bit of time to go back in and finesse those cut points. So that's something hopefully that will improve over time. But I think this is actually a pretty cool workflow, especially if you have got like a long talking head section that you're trying to cut down quickly. You can also like all these ellipses are just silent portions. You can have it if you click this button and then remove silent portions, it'll go ahead and exile all those. And then if you add all that transcription, you can highlight the whole thing and add it to the timeline. It will automatically remove all those silent portions. I have seen some people complain that it will remove things that aren't actually silences. So there's, maybe it's not perfect, but this is actually pretty cool. And the way this is, to me, it's like, and this is what Blaine was saying in his video, it's actually a lot faster to go through and read than it is to listen and cut and listen and cut and listen and cut. If you did if you did a take a few times, you can like quickly identify, where the good take is. Whereas if you were just have it all laid out on your timeline, you can maybe see the waveforms are the same at the start of each one, but that's a little bit trickier than just actually being able to read the word. So this has actually been pretty interesting, and I think it's going to be a pretty legit way to start editing from now on. At least I'm going to keep working on it. Almond said, and welcome Almond, and welcome everybody. I don't think I said that at the beginning. I really appreciate you being here and especially engaging in the chat. It makes doing these live streams a lot easier and more fun for me and hopefully for you. So welcome Rambler, welcome. I think Justin I said hi to earlier. Captive, yes, and also Almond. So thanks all you guys for being here, guys and gals. He's saying, wait, hold on. Yeah. What's the name? I'll find it first time here. Oh, you need to join his Discord server. Maybe, are you talking about Blaine? I didn't know you had a Discord server, but yeah, cool. I've been using this workflow in my professional work for a few months now, and it's a game changer for my interview work. Absolutely. And that's what I think a lot of people who have been posting about this have been mentioning, especially for long form interviews, that it's been super clutch. And that's kind of what, an interview is very similar to what a lot of content creators do when they sit in front of the camera and just blab at it for like 30 minutes and then have to cut that down. Oh, he has a Discord server with a ton of great content creators. You should join it. All right, super. I need to get in. I started a Discord server. I tried to get into that a couple years ago. And nobody joined mine because nobody knows who the hell I am. And so it's not something that I've ever really gotten into, but I'll try it out and see, because yeah, this dude, like, he's amazing. Like I don't know how people have as much energy, to do the things that they do, but, kudos to him for being Superman. And one other guy I wanted to mention, Cam Mackey, another amazing, super prolific creator and just an amazing look. Both of these guys, this dude can just set a camera up in his apartment pretty much anywhere, minimal lighting, and make it look amazing. Helps off maybe that he's using an Alexa Mini, but I think even if it weren't an Alexa Mini, he would also have a really amazing look to his videos. But also Ken Mackey, he's got this new set that he's been using in his videos. It's crazy. Looks really, really great. But he made a video about Cine EI, and it's a little bit confusing. He starts off, and I think it's like, okay, we kind of follow along. We know what's going on here, and he's using it in a way that's a little bit different from what like Cine EI, in my opinion, is like intended to do. But then in the latter half of the video, I think it gets a little bit off the rails. But he's sort of like talking through it, I think, as opposed to like really planning it out, which is fine. But I think a lot of people, him included, are sort of missing the point with Cine EI. And you can use it however works for you. That's fine. Um, but I made some videos about Cine EI. I think I kind of figured it out because when I got my FX30, I never had used Cine EI before. So I really wanted to figure out what it is and what it's for, how it works. So I did a video and I've kind of followed up on it a few times to, keep exploring Cine EI. And so I don't want to get into the details about like why I think he's missing some of the whole point of it. But if you are using Cine EI, um, check this video out and just see, how he's doing it, and maybe it'll help you. Um, but if you, I think if you're looking for a tutorial on how to use it, this is probably not the best place to look. But it is kind of an interesting workflow that he's developed to use Cine EI. And also just follow this guy's channel because he makes really great looking content. And he's also like always trying out cameras and really trying to figure out how they work and how they look good. And I always appreciate creators who are doing that as opposed to just doing reviews of stuff all the time. Rambler is asking, do you guys mind map the workflows like write on paper or memorize the flow of repetition? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. Do you mean like in the edit? Are you talking about like how do we edit? Like, or are you talking about like how we film? If it's editing, then it's basically a lot of trial and error and repetition, just kind of learning as you go along. A lot of times, like I don't know how to do something in an edit, so I'll Google it. I'll go to YouTube and try to figure out how to do a certain thing, and I'll do it for that one thing that I'm trying to do, and then I won't do it again, and I'll totally forget. So it's all about repetition. Like if you learn something once, and you don't do it again, then you'll forget it, or at least I do. I have to do things repeatedly in order to actually learn it. So for me, it's all about repetition. If you're asking about editing. All right. I'm gonna skip to the next. Sorry about that. So the last thing with this stream, I'm just going to quickly talk about what I'm working on, and I already kind of previewed it a little bit here. Rip. I'm working on a video about S-Cinetone, exposing S-Cinetone, especially with the FX30 and the A6700. The A6700 is obviously the newer camera from Sony, but it has the same sensor and the same processing as the FX30. So I know these are two cameras that a lot of people are getting because they are relatively more affordable than the full frame options. Obviously, S-Cinetone has been out for a while. It came out with the FX9 several years ago, and it's been released pretty much on all the newer cameras from Sony. So pretty much everything since the FX9, the A7S III onward has the S-Cinetone profile. And people ask me about it. It's not something that I use because I think S-Log3 is just the best. And I don't think it's a difficult workflow. A lot of people complain that S-Log or log profiles in general are difficult to work with, but I don't find that to be the case. So that's what I use. So I didn't really have a ton of experience. I mean, I've used it a few times here and there. I did a previous video comparing it and the PP off S-Cinetone and S-Log3, but I wanted to do a much deeper dive into it with this video. So that's what I'm working on. And I've noticed that a lot of videos that people will do S-Cinetone tutorials, like how to use it, how to expose it, and their stuff doesn't look very good. What often happens is they have like really blown out highlights on skin, or if people are wearing brightly colored clothes, like white stuff, or even if there's anything white in the frame, that stuff blows out a lot in their footage. And these people are like, "Oh, it's a super easy profile. You could just look at it on the monitor and it looks amazing." But I'm like, "Your footage looks like trash." Not to like dog anybody in particular, but I thought there's got to be more to this than people are saying. So that's what I've been working on here. And I think I did a lot of test shots, both in my little studio here and outdoors to try to figure out like what's the best method for exposing S-Cinetone so it doesn't look like blown out hot, hot garbage. Do I still have, I do have my Discord server. I haven't logged into it in probably a year and a half or 2 years. So I'm sure it's still up and I just need to go back and log in. I need to find the login. But maybe my channel's a little bit bigger now than it was obviously when I started that. So maybe there would be more interest in it. So it's something that I might be willing to get back up and running. Um, yeah, it's hard to want to use S-Cinetone when I can choose S-Log3. Absolutely. I think S-Log3 is by far and away, in my opinion, better than S-Cinetone. Um, I don't, people are saying, it's supposed to be like the Venice look right out of camera with minimal corrections and minimal grading, or no grading, but I just don't find that I like the look of S-Log3 better than S-Cinetone, and you also get easier, you get more dynamic range, and in my opinion, it's also easier to expose it. I think you can expose S-Log3 at an even exposure. You can go +1 or +2 stops overexposed on S-Log3, and it's going to look amazing. And what I found, to spoil my conclusion in my video, is that S-Cinetone, you can expose it at an even exposure as long as you've got complete control over the lighting and you know nothing is going to get suddenly brighter. But if you're outdoors and you can't really obviously control the sun, then it's better to underexpose it by at least a stop. Um, and if you overexpose it, then you're done. There's no latitude like you have with S-Log3 to overexpose and bring it back. But there's also no point to overexpose S-Cinetone because the base ISO is 125 on the FX30 and the A6700 and 400 for the second base. So you're obviously going to get much less noise right off the bat than you would in S-Log because the ISO is so much lower to begin with. So there's really no point in overexposing it. 100%. Thank you. I think I've been streaming for about an hour, and that's kind of where I wanted to limit my streams. Yeah, we're about the hour mark. So I think I'm done. I really appreciate all the comments. Yeah, like I said, it makes it a lot more fun and a lot easier to have the stream when people are engaged. So really appreciate it. And I've been streaming at 3 p.m. the last 2 times because of just the way it's worked out, but it's not really going to be doable going forward because my stepson he's on fall break right now, but typically I would be having to pick him up from school at this time. So I was thinking that I would probably do these streams around 11 or noon Central Time. So if you are joining in here at 3 because that's convenient for you, then it's probably not going to work out for me going forward. So sorry about that. But let me know if you send me a comment somewhere on a video, or maybe I'll do a poll or something. But there's only been a couple people in these streams, so I don't know if it really makes sense to try to schedule something. Hopefully it'll work out. Anyway, appreciate it. It was fun for me. I'm glad you had some fun. Thanks a lot, and maybe I'll see you in another one. Oh, end stream.